So, today we're gonna talk about Marcus Aurelius' Meditations, and I'm indeed gonna read paragraphs, maybe even chapters. It depends on how well I'm doing, and so on and so forth, of the original book. And so, yeah, it is from the Gutenberg.org site. I'm gonna link it down in the description. So if you wanna read meditations for free, I do want to point that out, for free, by the translator Merich Casaubon, Casaubon, which was released 2001, June 2001, and was updated most recently March 8th, 2021, in English and so on and so forth. Yeah, I have looked for different translations. I, on my Kindle, have a translation that's not pretty amazing. I don't know where I've had it from, maybe from archive.org, most likely, but it is just really not a good translation. But I think this one that I'm having in front of me is a bit better. We're gonna start with the 9th book, just because 9 is my favorite number. As dumb as it may sound, but yeah, the 9th book. He that is unjust is also impious. For the nature of the universe, having made all reasonable creatures one for another, to the end that they should do one another good, more or less according to the several persons and occasions, but in nowise hurt one another. It is manifest that he that doth transgress against this her will is guilty of impiety towards the most ancient and venerable of all the deities. For the nature of the universe is the nature the common parent of all, and therefore piously, I don't know what this fucking means, I'm gonna tell you, devotedly religious, a deeply pious woman, so a religious woman, I guess, and to be observed of all things that are, and that which now is, and to whatsoever first was and gave it its being, hath relation of blood and kindred. Well, you know what? I am gonna look for a different. There's several sites that do provide you with meditations. One, for example, by George Long, 2 hours and 47 minutes with a reading ease of 61.5 average difficulty. I see. Read free, compatible EPUB. Read online, start from the table of contents. God damn it. Book 9. Let's see. I'm gonna go ahead where I stopped around there. And further, this universal nature is named truth and is the prime cause of all things that are true. He then who lies intentionally is guilty of impiety, inasmuch as he acts unjustly by deceiving, period. And he also who lies unintentionally, inasmuch as he is at variance with the universal nature, and inasmuch as he disturbs the order by fighting against the nature of the world, for he fights against it, who is moved of himself to that which is contrary to truth, for he has received powers from nature through the neglect of which he is not able now to distinguish falsehood from truth. And indeed, he who pursues pleasure as good and avoids pain as evil is guilty of impiety. I don't even know what impiety means. Godlessness, ungodliness, unholiness, irreligion, sinfulness, sin, vice, immortality. Well, for of necessity, such a man must often find fault with the universal nature, alleging that it assigns things to the bad and to the good contrary to their deserts, because frequently the bad are in the enjoyment of pleasure and possess the things which procure pleasure, but the good have pain for their share, and the things which cause pain And further, he who is afraid of pain will sometimes also be afraid of some of the things which will happen in the world, and even this is impiety. And he who pursues pleasures will not abstain from injustice, and this is plainly impiety. Now, with respect to the things towards which the universal nature is equally affected, for it would not have made both unless it was equally affected towards both, towards these they have wished to follow nature should be of the same mind with it, and equally affected. With respect to pain, then, and pleasure, or death and life, or honor and dishonor, which the universal nature employs equally, whoever is not equally affected is manifestly acting impiously. And I say that the universal nature employs them equally, instead of saying that they happen alike to those who are produced in a continuous series and to those who come after them by virtue of a certain original movement of providence, according to which is moved from a certain beginning to this ordering of things, having conceived certain principles of the things which were to be, and having determined powers productive of beings and of changes and of such like successions. It would be a man's happiest lot to depart from mankind without having had any taste of lying and hypocrisy and luxury and pride. However, to breathe out one's life when a man has had enough of these things in the next best voyage, as the saying is. Haste though determined to abide with vice, and has not experience, yet induced thee to fly from this pestilence? I don't know. For the destruction of the understanding is a pestilence. Well, I'm actually going to look it up what it means, plague. Much more indeed that any such corruption and change of this atmosphere which surrounds us. For this corruption is a pestilence of animals, so far as they are animals, but the other is a pestilence of man, so far as they are men. Do not despise death, but be well content with it, since this too is one of those things which nature wills. For such as it is to be young and to grow old and to increase and to reach majority and to have teeth and a beard and grey hairs and to beget and to be pregnant and to bring forth and all the other natural operations which the seasons of thy life bring. Such also is dissolution. This then is consistent with the character of a reflecting man, to be neither careless nor impatient nor contemptuous with respect to death, but to wait for it as one of the operations of nature. As thou now waitest for the time when the child shall come out of the wife's womb, so be ready for the time when thy soul shall fall out of this envelope. But if thou requirest also a vulgar kind of comfort which shall reach thy heart, thou wilt be made best concealed to death by observing the objects from which thou art going to be removed, and the morals of those with whom thy soul will no longer be mingled. For it is no way right to be offended with men, but it is thy duty to care for them and to bear with them gently, and yet to remember that thy departure will be not from men who have the same principles as thyself, or as yourself, by the way, or as us. For departure will be not from men who have the same principles as thyself, for this is the only thing, if there be any, which could draw us the contrary way and attach us to life, to be permitted to live with those who have the same principles as ourselves. But now, seest how great is the trouble arising from the disorders of those who live together, so that though my jest say, come quick, O death, lest perchance I too should forget myself. He who does wrong against himself. He who acts unjustly to himself, because he makes himself bad. He often acts unjustly who does not do a certain thing, not only he who does a certain thing. Thy present, or your present opinion founded on understanding and your present conduct direct to social good, and thy present or your present disposition of contentment with everything which happens, that is enough. Wipe out imagination, check desire, extinguish appetite, keep the ruling faculty in its own power. Among the animals which have not reason, one life is distributed, but among reasonable animals one intelligent soul is distributed. Just as there is one earth of all things which are of an earthy nature, and we see by one light and breathe one air. All of us that have the faculty of vision, and all that have life. All things which participate in anything which is common to them all move forward that which is of the same kind with themselves. Everything which is earthy turns towards the earth, everything which is liquid follows together, and everything which is of an aerial kind does the same, so that they require something to keep them asunder. Hence the application of force. Fire indeed moves towards an account of the elemental fire, but it is so ready to be kindled together with all the fire which is here, that even every substance which is somewhat dry is easily ignited, because there is less mingled with it of that which is a hindrance to ignition. Accordingly, then, everything also which participates in the common intelligent nature moves in like a manner towards that which is of the same kind with itself, or moves even more. For so much as it is superior in comparison with all other things, in the same degree also is it more ready to mingle with and to be fused with that which is akin to it. Accordingly, among animals devoid of reason, we find swarms of bees and herds of cattle, and the nurture of young birds, and in a manner loves. For even in animals there are souls, and that power which brings them together is seen to exert itself in a superior degree, and in such a way as never has been observed in plants, nor in stones, nor in trees. But in rational animals there are political communities and friendships, and families and meetings of people, and in wars, treaties and armistices. But in the things which are still superior, even though they are separate from one another, unity in a man exists as in the stars. Thus the essence to the higher degree is able to produce a sympathy even in things which are separated. See then what now takes place. For only intelligent animals have now forgotten this mutual desire and inclination, and in them alone the property of flowing together is not seen. But still, though men strive to avoid this union, they are caught and held by it, for their nature is too strong for them, and thou wilt see what I say. If thou only observest, soon then will one find anything earthy which comes in contact with no earthy thing than a man altogether separated from another man. Both man and God and the universe produce fruit. At the proper seasons each produces it. But if usage has especially fixed these terms to the vine, and like things, this is nothing. Reason produces fruit both for all and for itself, and there are produced from it other things of the same kind as reason itself. If thou art able, correct by teaching those who do wrong, but if thou canst not, remember that indulgence is given to thee for this purpose, and the gods too are indulgent to such persons, and for some persons they even help them to get health, wealth, reputation. So kind they are, and it is in thy power also, or say, who hinders thee. Labor not as one who is wretched, nor yet as one who would be pitied or admired, but directly thy will to one thing only, to put thyself in motion and check thyself as the social reason requires. Today I have got out of all trouble, or rather I have cast out of all trouble, for it was not outside, but within, and in my opinions. All things are the same, familiar in experience, and ephemeral in time, and worthless in the matter. Everything now is just as it was in the time of those whom we have buried. Things stand outside of us themselves by themselves, neither knowing aught of themselves, or out, A-U-G-H-T, of themselves, nor expressing any judgment. That is it, then, which does judge about them, the ruling faculty. Not in passivity, but in activity lie the evil and the good of the rational, social animal, just as his virtue and his vice lie not in passivity, but in activity. For the stone which has been thrown up, it is no evil to come down, nor indeed any good to have been carried up.